Welcome back, everybody. I hope you're back. We are at show 2 of the Ryan D. Lee Show, the RDL show. Monday went so well that we figured we'd do it again. It didn't crash and burn, but I did get some amazing responses, and I want to talk about that a little bit here in the open. I feel like this is our crew, of course. Sky, Charlie, Jonathan. Charlie actually has referenced him making it his own show. He gets all the talk of pre-show. All his buddies hyping him up here. What do we got? Charlie Moss is my hero. I love that. Moss is a beast. I don't know if he's talking about Randy or Charlie here or not, but we already got a little fan base. I like it. We got a little fan base. We got a great show for you. Our first guest ever on the RDL show is going to be NFL Network's Cynthia Freeland, who is analytics expert. She's a wizard. She will talk circles around us, especially when it comes to how to properly. I didn't know this about her, but she also consults on with organizations about what they need to do in terms of how they go about picking free agents and things like that. So she is heavily involved in the NFL spectrum. So it's going to be fun to talk to her about her mock draft, what she thinks about free agency coming up. I'm excited about that. After Monday's show, as we always do, you have a post-mortem. You talk about what you think went well, what you think could be better. But the response from people was amazing because there's just so much content out there. So much. You can watch and be a part of anything if you'd like. But people showed up, and it gave me a real sense of gratitude, and I want to talk about that today. I want to talk about how much gratitude I have for the opportunity, for these gentlemen being a part of something. You know, this is grassroots. You know, we're not getting paid, any money to do something like this. It starts from the bottom, and I like that. You know, the expectations are on us. Everybody on my crew mute their deal. Thank you very much. That helps out a lot for me. It sounds like they're playing some drums or something back there. So it really gives us a lot of gratitude. And part of my story, right, is the idea of quitting and giving up. Because there was a time where, I thought I should just pack it in because there wasn't any hope. There wasn't anything there that I thought was going to benefit me. And I was doing a podcast the other day with a former peer of mine, Eric Woods, and we were talking about when you deal with a struggle. And in a culture right now where we deal with a ton of cancel culture, like you screw up, there's consequences, of course, to your actions, but you kind of just get thrown away. And then your self-esteem projects that. And so I asked him the question back, like, what was I supposed to do? Was I supposed to just give up? Was I supposed to say, oh, you're right, I no longer need to be in this life? Or do you get up and understand that you're this flawed human being and try to be better and still try to be the person you want to be and who you can be? So this is kind of what that show, grew to. It's something in 2020 where I thought I had everything kind of going in the direction I wanted, working for ESPN, calling football games, traveling all over the country, doing Sports Center and things like that. And that all went away when something that was out of my control, COVID, dissipated that, right? And so I was kind of sitting there in limbo in 2020 thinking about what I want to do. I really enjoyed getting to do that. Sports brings people together. That's going to be an emphasis to our show. We talked about it on Monday. We're going to continue to talk about it every episode. And it brings us together to have honest and open conversations. And that's what I love about it. It's something that's not too serious, that you can then have conversations that have serious undertones and things that hopefully can change. And it's really cool to get messages and get feedback from people who are inspired, because I'm just like everybody else. You could all do your own YouTube show and tell me your story and the adversity you've been through and everything you've gone through, and it would be just as inspirational to me. And that's the giving up part. You just, as long as you don't do that, and understand that your story may be the key that unlocks somebody's prison. So share your struggles, okay? Share them. We got into, let's get into the show a little bit. We got into this late in the show on Monday. We lost another NFL brother in Lewis Nix. Details we don't know about. He was shot a while back while pumping gas there in Florida. I don't know how that had anything to do with it, but there's nothing much we know, and that follows on the footsteps of losing Vincent Jackson. And for whatever reason, that former player's death hit me incredibly hard, and I did something that I don't normally do. I'm not really emotional when I speak out about things. I'm pretty pragmatic about it. For whatever reason, it was incredibly emotional. He passed away alone in his hotel room and died. And I could relate to that. So there was an empathetic piece to this all, right? I'd been in a hotel alone dying. And I don't ever want anybody to feel that way again. And I made this emotional kind of hyperbolic plea in a video, and then I released it. I wasn't like a live video or anything like that. I recorded it, and I looked at it again and thought, should I even do this? Will this make an impact? Will this be, seen as something wrong? But I just felt like I had to say something. And, I wanted the NFL and I wanted the NFLPA to respond. I wanted them to, show that they actually cared. And what I got was what pretty much I expected. The NFLPA did reach out, and we are on the books to start talking about some things. But of course, the NFL doesn't. The NFL doesn't care what I have to say. I'm a failed football player in their eyes. I'm a guy that did not make them money, and therefore tarnish the brand with all my off the field indiscretions and my behavior and things like that. And so it's understandable. And for some reason, I think that I forgot that when people show you who they are, believe them. And I just had this hope around them having some understanding, and I wanted them to care, and they haven't done it. And so what it has told me and what it has done is it's brought a ton of my peers together. We've talked over the last few weeks. We talked again when we heard of Lewis's death, and it's going to have to be our responsibility. We're going to have to take more of an action. And I put it this way: if we were good enough and we were the 1% of the 1% of the 1% to get where we got to, then we can do this. We can make sure that someone at 29 who played this game and someone who was at 38 who was highly successful at this game and an incredible philanthropist within his communities feel like their life is worth it. So reach out to me personally. You can come to the Ryan D. Leaf Show. You can come to me on all my platforms. But that's part of this, right? That's part of sports bringing us together so some things like that never happen again. And I appreciate what that conversation started a couple weeks ago, and we can continue to have it. So grateful for it. It's bringing Jonathan, Sky, and Charlie. You guys watched the game. You watched for years. As fans, there's been a question that was presented to me, like in any other business, right? If you go work for an insurance company for years and years and years, and you retire, and 5 years down the line, you develop a substance abuse or mental health problem, and that insurance company isn't responsible for their well-being. Why should it be different with our union and the NFL, a billion-dollar industry, to give back in a way that this doesn't happen? And my rationalization here is that there's 27,000 of us ever, right? It's like not 27 million people running around. There's 27,000 of us who have ever played football. What's your guys' thought about the NFL's lack of activity when something like this happens.
It's interesting. I think that you bring up a good point about like, why is it different than a separate or another job or career path, right? And I think that the answer lies within the rigor of being an NFL athlete, right? Like there's a reason that only 27,000 NFL athletes have ever existed, right? There's a reason that 0.1% of high school football players go on to play D1 and just a small of a percentage go on to play NFL football, right? Like they're dedicating their life to this system, and the system doesn't exist without these players, right? The NFL is not the NFL if there are no players. And certainly nobody's going to care about the sport if these players aren't playing at a high level, because guess what the NFL cares about? It's about money, about making money, about getting eyeballs on the TV and getting sponsorships and selling those advertising spots for $1 million a 15-second hit, right? And without these players, they're not going to get that. So if these players are dedicating and donating their entire livelihood, right? 10, 15, 20 years. And then after, some of these players go on, they work for the NFL Network, they work for Fox, they work for CBS, they work for ESPN. They're still dedicating their time and their career to this infrastructure. This infrastructure has a duty to protect, and it has its duty to ensure that these players that gave their entire lives to holding up this system, that they're taken care of, and they don't.
What do you think about the idea that they're pushing and promoting a product that they aren't willing to discuss they've had a hand in, right? Mental illness, CTE. Mm-hmm. They've vehemently denied that it exists because of the players playing football, yet they talk about being there for the players down the line and helping them with this affliction, which they're just saying we don't know where it came from, but we're willing to help it. That's got to be a terrible conflict of interest, because they're promoting a game that they know is violent, and and that's, so I get it now. Like, I mean, I just wish they would stand up and Roger Goodell would say, hey, we're a money printing business, we're a violent, competitive league, and you're putting your life in your own hands. That's your choice, and you're getting paid handsomely for it. I would rather have them say that, because they are a marketing propaganda machine. I'd rather them just say that and then us go, okay, we get it. I think we should just all act as such, act as that's the message from the Shield, right? We are a money printing machine. We're a violent, competitive beast, and we're here to entertain.
Can I ask you something, Ryan, on that note? The NFL, the mindset of an NFL player, or the culture, I should say, within an NFL locker room, it seems very different than the other sports, right? In the NBA has been encouraging diversity. It's been encouraging athletes taking political stances and speaking their minds. And you see in the Players Tribune all the time, different NBA athletes talking about depression, right? DeMar DeRozan, Kevin Love have been outspoken. When Dak Prescott came out and he spoke about his depression, it was met with a lot of, from his peers, it was met with a different response, a response of like, you need to man up. Skip Bayless went at him. I mean, all these different NFL analysts just weren't on board with that narrative. Is there a mindset, a culture that's different in the NFL where it doesn't promote the mental health awareness like the other sports?
I think it does, just simply because, we're meant to suck it up. When you have an ankle injury, you're one of 22 starters out there. You suck it up for the good of the team. And there's a stereotype in an NFL locker room around toughness, and you're a big, tough NFL player. You don't show vulnerability and weakness. What I figured out was what my biggest strength is understanding that I'm thankful for my struggle, because without it, I wouldn't have stumbled across like the strengths that I have. And I think a lot of times we don't view those as strengths, and we've been told we haven't forever. I remember right before I retired, I really could see the issues of mental illness coming out of me. I couldn't get out of bed. I was sad all the time. I felt really overweight and lazy. I wasn't training. And instead of walking into Mike Holmgren's office, my head coach in Seattle, I just quit. What if I would have walked in that room and said, hey, coach, I'm struggling with all those things. I don't know what's wrong with me. Can you please help? I believe because I know the man Mike Holmgren was and is, I believe he would have said, all right, Ryan, let's go figure this out and see what's wrong and try it. But it just, I didn't know that I could do that. I didn't think I just thought I would get beat over the head by people saying what a pussy I was. And that's the football, that's the football mindset. And so it's really, really, really difficult. And before we get to Cynthia here in a little bit, I want to transition to the Tiger side of things now, because when Tiger, I don't know if you guys watched the Tiger documentary that HBO did. It was an unauthorized biography documentary. His voice wasn't in it. All the people that were in it don't interact with him or haven't interacted with it for years. So that felt a little hard. But some of the things that, like the night he got arrested, I could really relate to that, right? The look on his face, when reality set in, and being so altered because he was in physical pain because of all the surgeries, but also the guy's been in emotional pain for a long, long time. Having been the greatest golfer in the world, and the scrutiny and everything that comes with that, and how he's handled it, it's been a problem. And to see him get back on top was so great. I ran into him in the Genesis Open a year ago in the locker room, and it was so weird and awkward. I walked up to him. We've known each other for years, really weren't great acquaintances or anything like that, but I walked up to him and I hugged him and I told him how proud I was of him. It's got to be crazy to, in his eyes, thinking, why the hell is Ryan Leaf telling me he's proud of me? And I don't know if he was really willing to accept that, but I just felt it was important because he'd gotten sober and he'd found that way of life. And to hear, the news this week, accidents can be accidents. And that's what I'm hoping, and we're all hoping for. But of course, my mind, my addict mind first goes to, okay, I saw him on TV on that Sunday at the Genesis Open. He looked kind of out of it. And then this accident happens a couple days later. That's where my mind goes. Now, I don't know anything to be true or not. I just know that I'm so happy he's okay. And I wish the best for him. And I want him to know that I'm somebody who's gone through all this and continues to struggle on a daily basis with the idea, and I'm here for him. And so, like I said before, an accident can be an accident. The police are going to do an investigation into the black box just to, see driver error and things like that. And unless we know what was in his bloodstream, ultimately we'll never know anything. But we hope for the best for him. And I kind of wanted to talk about that because he's somebody who's dear to my heart. And boy, people think my story can inspire. Wow. You imagine if Tiger Woods sat down and did his own life story documentary and was honest and vulnerable and transparent, how many people he could save, how many people he could help. I think that's what's pretty impactful. So we all wish the best for him and in his recovery. Speaking of recovery, right? We talked about this on Monday. We're going to talk about it every single day because they are one of our title sponsors, Sunfair. Sunfair is a meal preparation company that delivers food to your doorstep every morning here in the Los Angeles area, as well as the Phoenix, Scottsdale area. And what they're able to do is transform your body simply by food, if you're willing to commit. It's all about the food. All right. You go to their website, sunfair.com, right? You go to sunfair.com. You go to the sign up process there. You get 10% off your first order if you go through this. Once you get there, enter your information, select Carl Ferro, Ferro, as a sales representative, and then select the Ryan D. Lee Show as how you heard about us. You complete your sign up, and away you go. Now, I started this on July 3rd. This is what I look like. And this is what I look like, 4 days ago in a picture I took. I've never had abs in my life. I have not worked out in 9 months since this pandemic started. It's been all the food. It's amazing today's order was seared duck breast for dinner. Everybody, that's pretty damn good. I'm looking forward to that. It's been a transformation, but it takes commitment, right? They have plenty of different ways you can go about it. You can go through the fat burn diet, which is a limited calorie, remove sugar, gluten, dairy, all of it, and then you can step into a signature kind of diet, an athletic diet, keto, paleo, anything that fits your well-being. Carl do a great job in working with the nutrition side of it on how many calories you should be taking in and how big you are in comparison to small. Because when I started, I was 298 pounds. I'm 228 right now. So that's a significant difference. And
some of us need to exercise to get abs. All Ryan has to do is eat well.
You don't if you commit to it. And I fast, right? So there's things to go about it, right? So I eat in the hours between 9 and 5, and then from 5 at night until 9 in the morning, I fast. And then I eat my meals during that time. And it's really, really worked. And I have a 3-year-old at home, right? I have a 3-year-old at home, and I want to be around for as long as I can to watch him grow up, because it's the coolest thing in the world. I used him as a bit of a marketer the other night when we were launching the show. He was sitting in this chair, and we were preparing for the show. And before we know it, it easily could be the MacGyver Leaf show before we know it. He's got this down. So coming up next, we're going to bring on a friend of mine from the NFL Network. She is our first guest on the Ryan D. Leaf show, which is pretty darn cool. But what she does at the NFL Network is very, very interesting, because as a analyst, when I'm watching the game of football, I tend to watch it differently. And she watches it from a purely money standpoint or a number standpoint on how to get the best out of any kind of situation. And I find that really interesting. We had a conversation the other day about free agency and wide receivers and what that's going to look like. And she'll just talk circles around me. And I'm like, I played the damn game for years and years and years. So our next guest, do we got her yet, Jonathan?
No, she is not here yet. So we're going to have to do a little bit of improv while we got some comments, though, that we can hit.
All right. Before we get Cynthia, before we get Cynthia up here, let's look at some of these.
Yeah, so earlier, comments. Rob Berger, Ryan, he commented here pretty succinctly about the conversation that you were having about the NFL, how they need to balance the dollar with addressing the players' needs.
Well, I mean, they're a private company, right? They're about generating the dollar. But they could honestly, be in the business of saving lives, really. And the question is are they willing to? And so I'd love to have a conversation with them about it. But again, like I said, I don't know how much the NFL really cares what I have to say about anything. We'll see.
Henry says that Sky has the dopest name in the group, and he'd like to hear what he has to say. I haven't heard. Sky hasn't said a word this entire show. Sky, you there? What's going on,
I'm
man?
Here. I'm here, and I'm waiting for cracks in the system, and Ryan's been taking it away beautifully here. Henry, thank you so much. I do have plenty to say. Just waiting my turn here, and maybe Ryan, we were talking about Tiger Woods. Might be good an opportunity to kind of combine the football conversation and the golf conversation to kick off the show and talk about Johnny Football, who may no longer be Johnny Football.
Well, that for me is an interesting conversation. I watched him on the Green Light Pod with Chris Long, and I thought he spoke really eloquently about everything that he's gone through, because Shannon Sharp had made some really pointed comments about watching him play in that fan-controlled league. And in doing so, I really liked his response. But then he talked about, purpose. And one of his purposes and one of the things he wants to do is 12 years. He's given himself 12 years to become a professional golfer. Now, I know Johnny's a good golfer, okay? But I'm a hell of a good golfer, too. I'm a 1.9 handicap. right? So I'm about a scratch golfer, and I don't have the words to say it. The sound you hear when you hit the ball, as a PGA Tour professional, it's different. The ball flight, the pressure putting. I play with a guy at my club who has the course record there, 63, and he is unbelievably long, reads greens like crazy, and he is battling his tail off to make it on the Asian Tour. It's just a struggle, and he's the best golfer I've ever seen in person that I play with. So I love his goal setting. I really do. And if this is something he wants to chase, I'm more than for, because I want people to chase their goals. But, have a solid plan B here, Johnny, too. You could do some tremendous things to help people down the line. And I want to see that play out. I'm wondering if Cynthia thinks, she's in Arizona. I wonder if she thinks that what time is it in Arizona right now, guys? Right, because that's always a problem. Mountain and Pacific time on daylight saving.
They're an hour ahead right now, right?
An hour ahead, yep.
So it's 1:30, creeping up on 1:30. Does she think that we said 12:30?
She didn't try to get in about an hour ago, did she?
That's true. We were here.
Hopefully, she's coming in here.
Well, I'm sending her some harshly worded tweets or harshly worded texts.
Well, so Henry here, Ryan, says that Charlie Moss might actually be able to live up to the chops of Cynthia. So if Cynthia doesn't end up coming on, then we could have Charlie do the bit here and give Charlie's mock draft 1.0.
Problem solved.
Well, I got her response back. She said she was very sweet and said, "Oh, I thought 10:33 for some reason. She thought 10:33. So maybe she's a numbers gal. It's not a good start for Cynthia right now."
She'll be in just a minute, I'm sure. Ryan, do you want to revisit JJ Watt quickly while we wait for Cynthia?
Oh, she's here.
Well, no, I don't, because now
there we go.
Hello.
Now we got her.
For whatever reason, I thought it said 33. Sorry about that.
Well, you're a numbers gal, and so we would assume that that's how that would work. Cynthia Freeland, everybody, NFL.com/Freeland. You can go to all her great writing. She just did something recently about the draft, and we wanted her on.
Why is your beard already back?
What's that?
Why is your beard already back? You shaved it 5 minutes ago?
I know. I am testosterone. I'm a growing man.
Already the bearded back. I thought we were going to be no beard. Okay, keep going. I was expecting a completely different person. You
think I should shave every day?
No.
No.
I like the beard. I think the beard's a good look.
Oh, that's nice to hear. You should see Sky's beard. His beard puts mine away, puts it to shame. It really, really does. Where is he at? There he is.
Wow. I mean, that's amazing.
I think if you got a name like Sky, you should have a facial expression or something that goes on with it. I want to talk to you about this mock draft because I like how you went about it. I like how you said this is how teams should draft to win now. Why aren't teams thinking like that all the time? Because we're talking about teams that are up one year and down the next. San Francisco loses everybody defensively. Why shouldn't you try to draft in each year's draft like you need more wins the next year that will get you to the top? Why aren't we seeing more of that?
Unfortunately, a lot of teams don't have that luxury for a couple reasons. First, they're often saddled with legacy salary cap situations, and especially this season with the cap going down, they're screwed with these past contracts because they were written in a time when the quarterback market was X and they're still paying off or amortizing, their defensive end that is Y or a corner that is, Z. And then you actually see, for example, the Arizona Cardinals, they had to overpay for JJ Watt. I think JJ Watt's a great player, but that's a lot for him because ultimately in a year when the cap's going down and you don't know if Larry Fitzgerald's coming back, it's going to be interesting to see. However, if they wanted him, in order to get him, they had to pay for that because they had other suitors in the marketplace. So, you're getting a free agent that's pretty hefty price tag. And ultimately, you have to make concessions elsewhere. So, it's not often that teams get the luxury of having to really be able to start from scratch, right? The Browns did that, and they're sitting really pretty right now. They're in great shape in terms of cap and opportunity in this draft cycle. But other teams, look at the Saints. We don't even know what's going on with the Saints, and they're over budget right now. So they're gonna be a lot of cap casualties next week.
Yeah, that was something I want to ask you about. We saw the first real casualty down in Miami. $51 million contract just last year, and now gone after 1 year. I mean, what kind of surprises do you think we might see and hear over the next few days, where there were players you assumed was going to be on your roster next year, but might be out because of where the cap is and what kind of troubles they're in?
So I think if you have smart teams, you're actually going to use this as like a cleansing process, and you can reset a lot of what you have going on and get flush kind of all those bad contracts. I think you're going to see teams like for example, I would imagine the Green Bay Packers restructure Aaron Rodgers' contract to push more of his salary into the future so that they can go acquire more players for this season and what they kind of need. But it really does depend on the market, and it depends on, if the players are willing to do that. So you'll probably see restructuring in Dallas. Players tend to want to play in Dallas. So they have the luxury of, the leverage works in Dallas as a team's favor. But other teams, you won't see that. And you won't see a team being, or a player being as kind to restructure in that situation. So I think you're going to see, I think the Saints are going to be one to watch because they're pretty cap strapped. I think it's going to be interesting to see what goes on. I think that the Chiefs might have some surprises too, because they need to kind of keep some things a little healthier with their defensive front. It'll be interesting to see some of the teams we think are very good, what happens with some of their players. Tampa Bay is another one. I'm interested to see what they're going to do on defense, who they're keeping, who they're not going to be able to keep.
By the way, you're the first guest ever on the Ryan D. Leaf Show, by the way.
What an honor.
Yeah. Thank you. I figured as much, I figured that it was apropos in the off season. Let's get to your mock draft. I thought it was interesting because there's some on there that I would necessarily, and we're going to look mostly at the quarterbacks and what you're thinking there, but the first two picks in the draft are exactly how I would do it anyway. And talk to us about that a little bit, on why you think the Jets are going to do what the Jets, or the Jets would need to do this in this scenario.
It's funny because Mekhi Becton was actually a shining star for them last season when he was healthy and able to be on the field. And I say shining star because the rest of their O-line was hot garbage for the most part. And I understand that we saw, like at Oregon, Penei Sewell played left tackle, so you don't need to double up at that. But remember, there's right tackle, so you can bookend that to create a good opportunity for any quarterback. I think Jets fans want to see a different quarterback because Jets fans want to move on, and they want to be good, and they don't remember maybe that they have a lot of needs. Like, they don't have a secondary for the most part. I mean, it's not, other than Marcus May, like, scratch that whole thing and move on. And then they don't really have a pass rusher. Is CJ Mosley going to come back and play? Who knows? But they need someone to get after opposing quarterback. They've just got a lot of needs. So that tackle would be a really smart way to improve quickly. They don't have wide receivers either. Like, they really need a lot of things to get better fast. So abandoning Sam Darnold, I guess that's one strategy, but I would say if I were advising them, they should probably trade down a little bit, get some draft equity and more picks. And then, they could probably get the tackle a little bit further down because other teams are going to panic and want to try to jump ahead for a quarterback. So they could be smart, and Joe Douglas could strategically do that. But, I think abandoning Sam Darnold it's not Sam's fault. They've got like kind of no one else to play. So that's an interesting one. And of course, Jacksonville could do whatever they want. I will say, if Deshaun Watson were in the marketplace for them, and you could say, like, okay, if we hadn't heard everyone say Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson makes any team so much better just right away. So that would be of all the people who are rumored to be out there. But remember, the rules of my mock draft were only consider true free agents and draft eligible players. But to me, Deshaun Watson's by far and away the best person in the marketplace. Well,
talk to us about that a little bit, right? So, Andrew Brandt, who I go to a ton when it comes to the business of football, smart. And, he was pretty adamant about Carson Wentz and that cap number and moving on when the whole thing kind of started to shake out. And he stayed pretty solid on that, and it happened, right? They were willing to get rid of him, take off that huge contract, take on some bunch of dead money, and that exists with Deshaun. That it certainly exists with the likes of Russell Wilson. Is it going to come down to an act of desperation from some team offering up the kitchen sink and everything to Houston before they budge, or are they really not going to accept any possible offers? And this is just going to play out in a bigger pile of, chaos.
So I think this one comes down to ego. I think Deshaun really, truly wants to leave. And I think the brass there really, truly believes that they can salvage this situation. And I don't think Deshaun's kidding. And I don't think he's being a diva or a baby or anything like that. I think he's truly offended by the situation. And I've had nothing but great interactions with him as a human being. So there's zero reason for me to believe that, any of this is for show, because he's a kid who wants to get out there and start working. So I think this is going to come down to when the Texans actually take a look in the mirror and say, okay, we got some things here that are making it really undesirable for players to want to be here. I mean, JJ Watt leaving was weird because JJ Watt was like pretty much Mr. Houston. I mean, after the hurricane, who in Houston didn't love JJ Watt? So, you're seeing a little bit of like the it's coming apart at the seams a little bit. And I think maybe they'd be best served to really entertain opportunities to move forward right now. I think there's some teams that would be willing to give up quite a bit and they could start anew, as opposed to kind of foolishly thinking that they can salvage a situation that
you placed a quarterback in Denver, and Drew Lock has been, I like Drew Lock. I don't necessarily know what the fan base and inside the organization and John Elway think of Drew Lock, but is that a realistic expectation this year that this Broncos team could already be moving on from the quarterback they drafted so highly a few years ago?
It's interesting that Breaking Reaction was really interesting. It actually fits here too. 2-3 years for quarterbacks. Like, the thing that they have in Denver is, to me, a bit different than what's going on with the Jets and Sam Darnold, because Denver has a decent O-line. They could always be better, but their O-line's good. They have a decent situation at running back. They have great receivers. I mean, Jerry Jeudy was a really nice addition. He needs to catch the ball and not drop it. But he, apart from that, and remember, Cortland Sutton is coming back from being injured. So they have a lot of good pieces. To me, like Denver, of course, they need cornerbacks. They let go of AJ Boye, so we'll see what happens there. And Vic Fangio certainly knows what he's doing there when it comes to defense. But it seems to me like this is a situation where they are more like one player away than another one, right? Like, so Denver's got a good, Von Miller, he's still there. We've got, Bradley Chubb is awesome. You've got Justin Simmons. The versatile safeties are really important in the modern game. So ultimately, I think they're closer to being one player away, and Drew Lock has gotten enough of a chance behind an O-line with enough people to really maybe bring in a younger guy and give that guy a chance to kind of learn. When you look at a Zach Wilson or something from BYU, you and I have talked about off-platform throws, right? Like, people who are able to not be perfectly set and get off a really accurate pass, that's an excellent and very important trait that a lot of these great quarterbacks share. Think of Deshaun Watson, think of Josh Allen, think of Patrick Mahomes. Like, ain't nobody better than Patrick Mahomes on off-platform throws. So it's a good trait to have, and perhaps Drew Lock could be kind of more of a bridge towards the future. And then you get your future quarterback now, and you could pick up some of the people in free agency. It doesn't make sense for the Jets because they're not one player away. They're not 10 players away, they're like 40 players away.
They're the Jets. Charlie, you have a question for Cynthia, right? You wanted to ask.
I do. So I'm ready to talk NFL draft, and I see on your mock draft you got Trevor Lawrence 1, obviously, but I think you said you had Zach Wilson ahead of Justin Fields. Can you kind of explain that reasoning why you went that route?
Look, they have different traits, right? So, Zach Wilson off platform. So I put him slightly ahead because I told you the ability to have those off platform throws and that makes you great quicker in year one. Justin Fields, he has a longer term, like his projection, it's a little bit more of a learning curve because he runs a lot. And typically when you have their rushing ability, you put them behind a better offensive line for rushing. I mean, for the purpose of my mock, Taylor Moton, the right tackle for Carolina, hasn't been re-signed. It's a harder situation, and it's less valuable to have a pure rushing quarterback because you've got Christian McCaffrey there than it is in a Denver where they've got a really good run blocking O-line. They've got slightly better, their wide receivers are better than they were last year. And then you've got, so to me, it's kind of pick your poison. It's less about one being better than the other and more being a bit stylistically different, right? It's Justin Fields is like an awesome fit in a situation where he can use his legs and then develop more of the other aspects because his playbook wasn't as thick as some other quarterbacks.
For sure.
I think it's kind of funny. I think it's kind of funny that for whatever reason, we're hearing some of these analysts like our boy Move the Sticks there, Daniel Jeremiah and Dan Orlovsky talking about like, they're more open to the idea that all these quarterbacks are super talented that are coming into the league, but it matters where they go. And for whatever reason, we haven't heard that. And I've been like, for 20 years, I've been saying, hey, it matters where you go. Trevor Lawrence is probably the most talented quarterback in this thing, but he's going to Jacksonville. They've never had a Hall of Famer. You're going to a place where, Urban Meyer may give up and quit after 2 years because he's never had a sub 500 season in his career. It's important. And sometimes being the number one overall pick in comparison to being the guy, Patrick Mahomes, 10th down the line, it's better. Why are people just always all of a sudden coming to this realization?
See, I always get in trouble in the analytics community because I believe every quarterback's a system quarterback, every single one ever. There's no one quarterback that's never been not a system quarterback. It just depends if you have the players in that system or not, right? Like Lamar Jackson, if you put him on Detroit, he would not be Lamar Jackson. He would still be good, but he wouldn't be, maybe he wouldn't have been a league MVP. But right. And then the opportunity also to like really think about how the structure of your entire team and the salary, like your defense needs to be good too. You can have a great quarterback. And I mean, think of all those Saints teams that Drew Brees was passing for over 5,000 yards and their defense was just garbage. So they didn't win games. So at the end of the day, it's the sum of the parts has to all make sense. So it's not about one, and it's not about, like you can love Mac Jones. Great. If I'm the person architecting an offense for him, then I'll probably be better suited to do that. Right? Like Brian Daboll created the right situation for Josh Allen to succeed. It's not that Josh Allen would have been awesome in every single spot. It was the combination of the play caller, the other players on the team. I mean, Stephon Diggs made a gigantic difference in that one. Yeah. And also like what the skill set is for the entire quarterback or any position for that matter. Like I'm 5'6", I'm never dunking a basketball. If you ask me to dunk a basketball, like if you're expecting me to be drafted to dunk a basketball, like you're losing your mind. You're losing all your games. I mean, if you want me to hit a perimeter shot, I can't do that because I suck at basketball, but it's far more likely for me to do that. I could probably be taught to do that as opposed to dunk a basketball. So it's about expectations. Everyone's a system quarterback.
And I think that's hugely important, especially for you Buffalo Bills fans out there. The fact that you did so well this year and the season dragged on as long as it did, that Brian Daboll, did not end up in LA for the Chargers, because I really thought that's the place he was going to land, and it would have made Justin Herbert an even better commodity, I think. So, Cynthia Freeland, thank you for taking the time to join us today. Our first guest ever. It's going to go down in the history books. We'll probably clip it and just have it play on reel over and over on the YouTube channel.
I'm glad it's going to be a really fun Jeopardy like question one day, right?
Yeah.
Like what is, and then you'd be like, oh, that's amazing. So we're good.
It would be how's that preface? I was a Jeopardy question this year at the Tournament of Champions one. I was an answer to
what was the question? Was it?
It wasn't very kind. It was
beard thrower in 3 days.
This college quarterback was drafted alongside Peyton Manning. Their careers had much different outcomes.
Wow.
So it was I was an answer to Jeopardy, yes, but they didn't need the end part. They could have said this person was drafted alongside Peyton Manning. I'm pretty sure the guys that were in the Champions one could have got that. So it was a little backhanded.
Look, I think that's like a nice badge of honor because how many people even get to be a Jeopardy question? And good, you laugh at it. Like, look at who you are. Like, that just goes to show, like, these Jeopardy writers, petty losers. Like, get a real job, you know?
Yeah, get a real job. Yeah, yeah. So thanks for being with us. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Can't wait to. I wanted to get to more. We'll have you on again. I want to talk to you about
anytime.
With free agency starting this weekend. You're probably going to get pretty busy over the next week with all that. So.
All good. Anytime. You name it.
All right. Thanks. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network's analytics expert. You guys can go to NFL.com/Freeland for all her articles. She writes a ton. She consults with the teams when they're looking into free agency. So this is the biggest time of year for her, getting all that information out. I said wizard. She's a wizard, right, guys? She's a wizard.
That was
Genius.
Insane.
Yeah, she can talk circles around pretty much anybody. And then when she's done, crack open a can of Athletic Brewing non-alcoholic beer. How about that? That's what we need to do in those instances. I need to have a can out here every time so I can pop that open and get everybody going. Go to athleticbrewing.com and order now. They are a title sponsor of the show. You know, I tell people all the time I'm allergic to alcohol, and if I have it, I break out in handcuffs. That's the best way I can put it. I think that's a good way to joke about it. I just love the taste of it sometimes, and not have to feel like it alters me. Just the good taste. And Athletic Brewing does that, right? They brew it from the best possible, possible brewing ingredients, and it's great to have a cold, non-alcoholic beer at the end of the day or with your buddies watching the game. The RDL show, we're having technical issues. It's just, did we get it back? Ha! Look at that.
That's what happens when Ryan has to be his own producer.
Hey, this is the technology we live in these days. I feel like we're doing a pretty good job. We had our first guest today, guys. I mean,
and it went well. How about that?
It did go well. It did go well.
Henry though has a comment on something you said during that interview, Ryan. He says that Josh Allen overperformed. What do you think?
I don't think he overperformed. I think he did exactly what he was, leaning towards doing in Brian Daboll's offense. I think they just needed a couple extra pieces. And Stephon Diggs addition and Brian Daboll staying put. Now, I think more teams are going to be ready for what they're going to bring to the table next year. But, I mean, he's just made a drastic improvement. Now, your point will be well received a year from now if he does not back it up with an MVP type season. And if he isn't able to do that, then I'd be willing to relinquish to your overperforming this year for Josh Allen. But I expect a lot of things. I expect Buffalo to be the team to beat in the AFC East for the foreseeable future. Mm-hmm. And the only problem is they're not going to be able to hold on to Brian Daboll much longer. He's just so good, and the only way for them to keep him off the radar is to keep winning like they do and getting further and further into the playoffs. You can't get much further than the AFC Championship, and other teams that are trying to, pick up their new head coaches are on a timetable, and that needs to get done. It's a big reason why Brian Daboll did not get picked up by the Chargers, because he was still in the playoffs, and Chargers were worrying they weren't going to be able to get a guy to put together a really good staff.
Ryan,
what do you guys think the Saints should do at the quarterback position?
You got it.
What do you guys think? Do you guys think Drew Brees is retiring? We saw him out there pushing a sled around the other day. He took that drastic pay cut for cap value.
Wasn't there a rumor that NBC and Fox both offered him contracts? Was that
NBC already has signed him. He's going into the booth whenever he retires. He's ultimately going to replace Chris Collinsworth. He will go into the college booth for Notre Dame stuff immediately.
So we're going to see Mike Tirico and Drew Brees on Sunday Night Football then soon, huh?
Yeah, most likely in the foreseeable future. That was the deal. When I was with ESPN, from the things I was hearing, Drew was really in the running for the Monday Night Football job there, and a lot of people thought it was a done deal. And then when we heard the NBC news, it was a bit surprising. So I expect him to retire, but I don't know what's taking him so long. If he's still having the conversation around it, it would have come out more quickly, like the Phillip Rivers decision making in this process. So it would not surprise me if Drew is back for another year. Now, we just had Cam Jordan talking about if Russell Wilson was there, they would win a Super Bowl. So I don't know if Drew likes hearing that. Like, in his mind, he's like, well, will we win a Super Bowl if I'm there?
The Saints would have to offer Cam Jordan to get Russell Wilson as part of a trading piece. So I don't even think he would be on that team.
I have, I guess, a bit of a hot take here. I mean, as of right now, I don't think he retires, and it's strictly because of the timetable. And Ryan, I'll toss it back to you. I mean, you know, obviously being in the locker rooms and being, you know, on the other side of the fence here from us, like, why would he stick around? Other than the only thing I can think of is if like behind closed doors, right? We heard mid-season when Drew got hurt, we heard Sean Payton immediately come out and say, okay, it's going to be Taysom Hill. It's going to be Taysom Hill. Then it was Jameis, and then it was back to Taysom Hill. They go back and forth. Jameis barely played. Taysom Hill always has a role anyway. Nobody really knows outside of that locker room who would be the starter if Drew left. Is there two frames of thought I have? Drew is just not retiring, but he took a huge pay cut to help the team. He's got plenty of funds for the family, and he's going to stick it out and try one more year. Or my second thought is he is sticking around strictly maybe knowing that he will retire, and maybe behind closed doors they know that he is also not going to be the starter for 2021. However, Drew Brees is Drew Brees, and any extra help that Jameis Winston and or Taysom Hill can have, I think, would be helpful. So while he's still around and able to contribute to that team and franchise, is that something that NFL players do? Or if Drew's done, you think he would be gone already?
No, he's not. He's not going to. He spends more time at that facility than anybody, and what he gets for it is to be the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. He's not going to do it to, you know, help pat little Jameis's butt along the way. You know, that's not.
That's why I don't think he's going to leave. It doesn't.
I don't think he's going to leave either. I think he still feels like he's competitive enough that he can get it done, and therefore I do too. I think we would have heard by now that he was going to retire.
I agree.
I really, really do. So
we're gonna have a lot of roster purging in the next couple of days and weeks here with free agency picking up hot. And I think if Drew makes it through the next month and doesn't retire, then I'm firmly going to stand by that he's coming back.
I got to say, I disagree with you guys. I think we'll be seeing Drew Brees in the booth this upcoming season calling games. I firmly believe it. I think he lost a bunch of juice this year, heard the critics. And again, it's Drew Brees. He can definitely block that stuff out. But I just think it's just time.
Why hasn't he done it yet?
Everyone's different. Everyone's process is different, reminiscing on the good days, reminiscing with your teammates. I think he's just trying to find the right time. And I guess it's time for the bat.
Oh man.
Charlie, you always
man.
2 for 2.
2 for 2. There's a way you go about retiring in the NFL. You do it quickly. You do it in the off season early on, so you can, you know, it's not about anybody else's story. You make it about all your own. I think Phillip Rivers did. So the Louisville Slugger back out. Charlie, why are you always the one that gets the bat beat down? I don't know. I love it though. I love that you have strong takes.
It's the intern problem.
They're just easily knocked out of the park. I think
I gotta stir the pot sometimes.
Now,
back
to the thought here really quick, and we can move on. I do like the Marcus comment here I want to get to, and there's some Dak questions as well with a few minutes left. Last mention on Brees here. Ryan, do you think it is a better team move? I brought up, you know, maybe he's helping the team by coaching Jameis or Taysom Hill, if you want to think of it that way. Is it a better team move in helping the franchise for Drew to walk away early in the season so there's no question marks, there's no critics, there's no media, it's dealt with, the decisions are made, they go on with whatever they're going to do? Or the second way where, like, maybe it's helpful if he does stick around and help the transition?
Well, of course it would be helpful. I don't think that's going to be a situation where he's going to help with that transition. Once he's gone, he's gone. I really do believe that. I think him and Sean Payton understand that pretty clearly, that once he's gone, he's gone. This is going to be Sean's team and the way he goes about building it. I don't know where they go at the quarterback position, if and when. They have a plan in place right now. I know they do. They know what's going on. I really do believe that. And the longer it takes, every day we get closer to free agency to the draft, every day we get closer to that, that's a more advantageous for the Saints that Drew Brees is going to be back for another year.
Ryan, we got a couple minutes left in the program. Let's fire off some other quarterback questions here.
Can Marcus Mariota get a second chance for a new career like Tannehill with the Titans? When you get traded, it's a little different. When you get released as a high draft pick, as a 1 or 2 or a top 10 draft pick, when you get released, there's a different confidence that goes with that, lack thereof. Not only from maybe your viewpoint, but from the optics of teams that are looking for you too. I think Marcus Mariota, when he got a chance this year to step in a game for the Las Vegas Raiders, I think did a tremendous job. I don't know if anybody saw him as a starter again. I think he's an exceptional quarterback. I just think he's going to be a backup quarterback in this league the rest of his career. And guess what? He can make $120 million as a backup quarterback the rest of the way through and get to compete. And when he gets the opportunity, he can be, a better version of Chase Daniels, who's played for years and years and years and years, right? When he gets in, he's more of a dynamic type of quarterback. I just don't know if he's going to get a shot somewhere where he's actually going to be the starter. Now, if push comes to shove and the Chicago Bears are sitting there, leading in near the season and they don't have a quarterback, they're going to have to make a move and do something. I don't know. I don't believe that John Gruden and the Raiders can keep him on at that salary number in in Las Vegas. So they're probably going to have to get rid of him. I would like to know if Dak is going to be back this fall healthy to get the Cowboys somewhere. Well, he may be back healthy, but that doesn't mean the Cowboys are going anywhere, because even when he was healthy, like the first 5 games he played in this year, he broke every passing record you can imagine to start the season. They were terrible on defense. I honestly thought that Jerry Jones was going to fire Mike McCarthy after 1 year. If I owned the team, I would have. It was a debacle this year. It was this year couldn't have been any worse for the Dallas Cowboys than how it played out. With the new head coach, with Mike Nolan as the defense coordinator now out, so somebody went. Let's see how they rebound. Dak will be a huge part of that. I hope for Dak's sake they franchise tag him again, because then he's done and he can say, "Screw you guys. I'm on the open market. I'm going to go make all the money that I should have been making here with you guys, but do in a place where I can win." So I hope to hell that the Cowboys franchise tag him again for Dak Prescott's sake. Well, that was a hell of a show, guys.
Absolutely.
I think we had a rundown that would have taken, we contemplated doing a 2 or 3 hour show when we tried this, guys.
We're gonna have to get there pretty quickly because it's just
when you got a guest like Cynthia Freeland who could probably talk sports the whole way through. Let's thank her again, Cynthia Freeland from NFL Network, analytics expert. Thanks everybody for listening in, for the questions, for being a part of it. This is just day 2, right? We'll be back Friday, noon Pacific. Thanks, Jonathan, Sky, and Charlie again. It may be the Charlie D. Moss show on Friday. We'll find out. We'll see you guys Friday. Ryan Dealey Show.